Hello everyone, welcome to another horrific unboxing. Thought I'd throw this one in quickly, just as you know, a lot of stuff going on the channel, so got this yesterday actually in the post. It's a Phil from Brotherhood of the Dice was selling one of his games, so thought I'd pick it up. And be a good opportunity to expand on my role-playing library. Is that the way to put it? I've only got a handful of books, because I don't really get a chance to run games. You know how it is. I'm in quite a few campaigns at the moment. Oh, by the way, later on tonight, I'll be on Dragonlance Saga. We are doing Ravenloft, second edition D&D, when the black roses bloom. So that should be fun. And this is well packed. Oh, rippity rip. Let's do it. Oh my god. Here we go. That's part of this stream just to show how feeble my arms are when it comes to unboxing things. Just make sure nothing. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. So I think this is currently out of print or something, because I was looking online to see what was. I put a link in the description, but it's currently unavailable. But it might return. But here we go. Mutant Year Zero, role playing at the end of the days. We walked quite a decent sized book. It does obviously post-apocalyptic sort of RPG. So we walked among gaping ruins and rusty car wrecks, monuments to the fall of the ancients. Naphtha had been taken by the death worm, and the rat had driven August insane. We had no grub left, and there's only rat water to drink, but we had to keep going. We had to find Eden. We could not return to the Ark empty-handed. The fate of the people rested on our shoulders. Suddenly Frampton, the insect-like stalker leading our way through the wasteland, stopped. "Zone ghouls," he hissed, drawing his scrap rifle, and hailed ready to spew out a cascade of flames at anyone who dared come close. In the next instant, a chilling shriek rose from the ruins of Mount around us. Mutant Year Zero takes you to the world after the great apocalypse. Humanity's proud civilization has fallen. The cities are dead, wastelands, winds, sweeping along empty streets turned into graveyards. But life remains. Among the ruins, the people live. They're the heirs of humanity, but not quite human anymore. Your bodies and minds are capable of superhuman feats. You are mutants. So you're not playing strictly a human character in this. I'm guessing it's based on sort of post-apocalyptic, nuclear warfare, where radiation and so-called carcinogens, all that kind of stuff, sort of pure from the 80s. I think we're sort of playing on that game. Welcome, Britt. Fuck you. Yeah, I haven't played this before, to my shame. So that's why I was kind of interested in picking it up. So actually nice understated artwork. So got a little map here. Obviously, as usual, these I'll not take you through. If there's any campaigns, I'll not take you through it for spoilers, but we can sort of have a look at the main game itself, as we always do. These are one thing that I'll say about role-playing games. If you're not familiar with them, and obviously we've done a few in the show, as you share when I'm on channels. But even if you have no intention of playing, these are some nice books. And thought that goes into the world building behind the game is second to none. Computer gamers could take a leaf out of the books, because in the end, it's theater of the mind, and the people that create these games, and not only out there, but people get involved with them and homebrew scenarios are some of the most inventive people. There's more work goes into like some of these than published authors and their worlds to build, and that's not slagging anyone up. I'm just saying there's works out there that are considered storytelling fiction, and they're not close to the actual level of detail that goes into this. Of course, the world ends. It happens quickly, faster. So I think this is kind of. I think we're in a scenario where it's happened so long ago that people have forgotten what actually happened. So we're talking generations. He should run a game, yeah. Maybe the Wednesday group if we've got time in between. I think when this current campaign, Tatters of the King, sort of comes to a break, maybe do a one shot or something. This is who I bought this off, by the way, because he posted it in the group, and I'm like, yep, I'll have that. Right. So this is the first part, just going over the whole backstory. So the role-playing game. Welcome to Mutant Year Zero. In this role-playing game, you played mutated human beings in a fallen world. On your shoulders rests the greatest responsibility of all, to save the last glimmer of human civilization from total annihilation. Every player takes one role of a mutant to player character. Yep, you decide how your player character thinks and feels, what he does and says, but not what happens to them. It's your job as a player to immerse yourself in your PC. Maybe a mutant with supernatural powers, maybe still a very core human being in the desperate world. Imagine yourself. So, at the basis of all these games, you're taking yourself out of yourself. That's the whole point of the escapism. Just in a completely different world. You want to get away from current day stuff, your job, media, being all that kind of stuff. You just want to step off somewhere else. You want to be. It doesn't necessarily mean you're unhappy with yourself. Just it's good catharsis just to go somewhere else. Just go to a completely different world. That's and this is just another way to do it. So, what do you do? Right, so there's GM tools. No one will hold your hand, show you where to go. You and the other players create the stories of the game. They're not pre-written. You have the part aside. So this is basically a core rule book. Most of the games in are homebrewed. Which, like I said, when you see some of the stuff that people come up with and ideas, absolutely fantastic. So the main thing is fight for grub, water, bullets. So it's a survival game. So not necessarily focusing on encounters. You still have to survive. Your party has the, thing that some other games I don't get is that you have this, you travel for days and food and water and stuff isn't a factor. You don't have to go through that unless somebody particularly builds it in, and especially run to the next battle, so to speak, just so people can roll dice. And it does get a bit tedious at times because you may as well play a board game. The way I see it, that's the difference between just a tabletop board game and a role playing game. The point of the role playing game is you go into a scenario, and it's the bits in between the encounters that can be fun. And like the moment in Tatters of the King, we're on a steamliner, we're on a cruise ship, and just the interactions before the actual encountering anything supernatural could be just as much fun. How you interact with other passengers. Do you offend somebody? Do get a fan? If somebody fall off, it's all that kind of stuff that doesn't always happen intentionally because that's where the dice rolls come in. So you have to kind of play that out. So if you're trying to charm somebody and you just like my dice rolls are absolutely terrible. So when you do it terribly, you just have to role play it out. Instead of charming somebody, you completely offend them, and that's I don't know, just a bit of fun of the game. It's the luck of the draw. So the Ark is an island, an ocean of chaos. The people have made it so far, but the threats to the Ark are getting worse and becoming more frequent. Acid rain, disease, attacks from wild beasts, or savages from the depths of the zone. When danger looms, someone has to stand on the front line and protect the people. So, obviously, basically what it is, it's limited time. This is what I'm getting from this. The Ark has been like an encampment, but it can't stay there. Eventually, it's going to get overrun or destroyed. So that's why the party has to go out and find somewhere else. Classic. Oh, there's a card deck involved. Track cards, mutation, artifacts. They're not us. Right. So there's an optional extra here to get a mutant card deck, but they're not necessary for playing the game. So it's an optional extra if you want to add something to the game. heavy on exploration. You have a home base arc, which you get the mod and advance. Right, yeah. I was kind of thinking that there, that, yeah, the arc, but why go out exploring if the arc's secure? It doesn't make sense. So for the purpose of the story, obviously the arc's under threat. And if you don't do anything, you're done. You know, it's okay to stay in one location, but limited resources. You have to go out and sources of food. Like I said, mod and advanced, so weapons, fine ammo bunkers, all that kind of good stuff. I can imagine. Team play versus individual play. So your mutant has his own dreams and realizations, but also part of a team of player characters. We put focus in your gaming group, and the individual of the team. It's a matter of personal preferences. Talk about right. So once again, this is what makes role playing games completely different from your standard any type of game. You don't win as an individual. You might have side missions, you might have personal quests that you try to achieve, but if you don't work with the group, you're done for. And it's not even players versus GM. I don't want to call it GM in this, so I'm going to get that section, I'll say. But the person that runs the game isn't trying to beat the players. The players aren't trying to beat it. It's about moving the scenario forward and the story. Here, drop an email to the channel. Drop an email to the channel if you want to come on here. If you do it in this, we'll have a crack at it. Role playing, what's that? So if you've made it this far without knowing what a role playing game is, that's fair enough. Like I'm saying, if you're not familiar, and that's part of what I'm trying to do in the channel as well, is make people aware of these games because they've been around for decades now. And a lot of people are daunting, you know, they find it daunting, or they think they have to be actors, and it could be further from the truth. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. But like I said, the whole difference in a role playing game is you're trying to work as a team to achieve goals, and with that, it's not necessarily win or lose. Like I said, roll the dice, random events can happen. I've seen bad GMs in the time where if you roll badly, that's it, game over. You're completely stuffed. I'm talking to you 20 years ago, probably more. But I was playing a Star Wars game. The only time I've played a Star Wars game. My character had a bazooka thing. I think it was a rebel soldier. Had a bazooka thing, shot at an Imperial tank. The Imperial tank turned out had the information that we needed. I rolled really high and basically obliterated it. The GM then decided that we completely failed the mission because that tank was the only thing I had the information, and that was the end of the game. And I mean, it wasn't like coming to the end of the session, run out of time. This was like 10, 15 minutes into the game. The GM's just like, yeah, you've lost. Ha ha ha. I win. I remember sitting there, we're all scratching our head going, all right, okay, well, guess I'll not be playing that again. That's the way the game is. And most games aren't like that. So if you don't achieve a particular mission, then it's up to the GM then to sort of reevaluate. Okay, give the players another chance because you're trying to obviously go through the scenario. Of course, your character can die if it encounters something, but then that's why you have spare character sheets, or you re-roll. You know what I mean? You can basically take the same stats, put another name on it, and jump back into the game, like respawning in a computer game. So it's all about the taking part, having fun, not being afraid of, because if you're afraid of failure, then you're not going to try anything. You're always going to play it safe, and that takes out the element of chance and fun. So if you've made it this far without knowing what a role-playing game is, congratulations. Welcome to a creative and very rewarding hobby. Role-playing is a unique form of gaming that combines dice rolling and storytelling in a way that books and movies and even video games cannot match. It's true. It really is, and it's not me just saying for the sake of it. This is a unique hobby. It's brilliant. Role-playing games that you create your own story together with your friends using the rules as a guide and support. The strength of the role-playing game can also be its weakness. The freedom to create the story yourselves can feel overwhelming, but Mutant Year Zero contains a lot of storybooks, events, locations, and personalities for you to fill your stories with, as well as plenty of tools for the GM to use. So it's a GM, it's a game master, right? And if you need help or advice, there's a forum dedicated to Mutant Year Zero at Modifius, www.modifius.com. I will bung that in a pinned comment if you want to check it out. And freeleaguepublishing.com. So there you go. And if you're wondering, there's tons of channels, servers, social media groups. There's plethora of resources. If you're not familiar with this, we do it in this channel. You've seen some games being played. I share links when I play on other channels. So if you want to see big gobshite here, do stuff. More enough opportunity. And other people. So if you've never done this before, there's always beginner scenarios. There's like really simple ones you can do, just to get the feel for the game and the rules. Call of Cthulhu do really good. The Alone Against the series, so you can basically play out yourself. If you've seen me playing Alone Against the Flames on the channel, that was just me with the book going through it. And what it does then, it gets you sort of using the mechanics, because there's two aspects that can seem quite intimidating. The role-playing aspect, where people have this thing in their head, you have to be an actor, which you don't. And then there's the mechanics of, okay, what if I encounter this or that? So like starter games and all are quite good, but the GM as well, somebody run this game will have read through it. They know what's coming up as well, because they're steering you towards it. It's not a complete free-for-all, because that wouldn't work. You need a bit of structure. So we're now on to section 2 anyway. You're a mutant. Oh, there's an interesting bit here. Him and her. The arc may be a hellhole, but at least it doesn't discriminate. Hunger doesn't care if you're male or female, and neither does the rot. To reflect both genders in the way the rules are written and still keep the language consistent, we use he for unnamed players, PC and NPCs, while a GM is always a she. In every one of these cases, what it really means is he or she, but it wouldn't be too cumbersome to spell it each and every time. So it's a bit sad as well to have to do that with language now. It's like, it's not saying if it's put he, it's just a simple thing, right? We'll do that for this, or she. Job done. Obviously, adapt it to your players, for flip's sake. There's too many people now are looking for reasons to be offended. You didn't say this at this particular time. It's like, grow up. Once again, nobody cares. Nerds are nerds. Have always been the case. We don't care. If you like what we like, you're welcome. If you're not trying to destroy what we like or bring our stuff into it, then everyone's welcome. That's always been the case, and that's decades old. Like we've always been our own little unique brand of monster. That's most of us don't bother with news or current day pop culture, because it's once you get into this stuff, this is a deep rabbit hole, by the way. Once you get into gaming, role-playing gaming, like I jumped back into this after like a 20-year hiatus, and it's just like riding a bike. You get back into it again, and you realize, oh, I want to do more. It does. It just becomes that. It's just a really immersive hobby. It's the same as miniatures and anything, any of these sort of expansive. You can start off really basic, and then it's up to you how deep you go. Right. So this is basically going through the character sheet. So as always, you have particular set of skills. You have points to spend, so it's not infinite. You have to specialize in something. Every member has to bring something to the table. So that's the discussion before the game runs, is what type of character are you? And, what do you bring to the team? So if everyone's a combat fighter, that's fine. But if you don't have a survival expert or a locksmith or somebody who's techie, depending on the scenario, well, it's not going to work. And that's kind of all these games kind of have that premise. That's why I'm saying it's a team building. You can mod up as much as you can as an individual, but if a scenario doesn't use your skills, then you're kind of stuffed. And you won't. Everyone gets a chance. Most of the scenarios, they'll tell you what they need in terms of players. So it's not like it's just everyone just picks randomly, and then it's a free for all. You kind of get guided by what the game's going to be, the scenario, and that's where you have the conversation first. But yep, here is then the character sheet. So if you're not familiar, with character sheets, this is basically your template for the person you're playing. And what it does is this is where you have your skills. It's all in, and then when it comes to the dice rolling, this is what you refer to. So you're usually with these, you're either trying to get above or below a figure to beat the challenge that's presented to you, and that's why these games work. You also have equipment, which is some games focus heavily on what equipment you carry, others don't. So it's all part of that, what the scenario is. So if you're not carrying particular pieces of equipment, then you can't achieve a mission. But then what happens usually is then you have an opportunity. So that becomes your mission to go and get the particular item if you aren't carrying it, because then you can't go further in that bit. That's where a game can normally set time aside 3-4 hours for each session, and maybe it could be like a 2 or 3 session game. But this is where these games can like overrun, and 9 times out of 10 they do. If the players are engaged and the GM's having fun as well, 9 times out of 10 these games expand beyond what the time set out, and that's not a bad thing, because if everyone's enjoying themselves and turning up and getting on, then that's what you want. You want the thing to win. If the game's running shorter, it's like, oh right, finish. Then something's went wrong somewhere. If that makes sense, because I'll use that Star Wars game example. There's like 15-20 minutes in the game, and then it just ended. Just because, the GM had to win. You have one of those that guy type persons. Right, so this is good. Grub water and brew. Over encumbered. This is where I'm talking about other systems don't necessarily bring this to factor. You can have a backpack like with an infinite portal that seems to carry everything in the kitchen sink. Over encumbered, right? So you can temporarily carry more than your normal limited. Strength plus 2 items. The drawback is that you have to make a roll for each skill endure. For the skill endure, right? So this is what I'm talking. Your character can physically carry so much. Like you as a person, you have a backpack. You can only fit so much into it. And if you have to plan then what you're taking with you on an expedition or a mission, we've all done it. We've all carried that like heavy sofa or something for like a bit longer up the stairs, but you're knackered. You know what I mean? After you've done it, you're like, oh. And I'm seeing this more with more modern games, that they're bringing this mechanic in, that the reality of, yeah, you can carry this between you, but you're gonna have to roll. You're only gonna last so long, rather than, oh yeah, I can shove everything in a backpack and just still carry on a 3-day expedition, and no consequences for it. Oh right, sorry, I'm just waffling on here. Phil, good to see you, man. Oh, naughty. Oh, flip! Yesterday I went arse over tit. I walked around in front of the forklift. I was just trying to get the stuff loaded for the flight, and I completely forgot. And I only put the forks like about there. I walk around, crack right in my shins. I just went straight into my face. Just caught on. In fact, check it out. I just saved myself, and my shins are like a big straight line across my shins. Just went poof. And nobody saw, except the driver of the truck I was loading. Nobody noticed that it just went completely onto my face. Nice safe work environment I'm in. Right, so everything's a trade-off. You can't just shove everything in your back. You have to play for that. Developing your mutant, so every time you get a mutation, it has an effect on your body. So once again, you can't just be a super powered character. Everything has a price. So you have to kind of play, and that's part of the game that you really get into is, yeah, you might want to develop so much, but then you have to look at the cost price, and then you have to weigh out, do I really want that? Is it going to benefit me? And then that's where you kind of, plan your character. You can understand as well. Sorry, I'm going to take a wee sip here. My throat's kind of a bit harsh, but you can understand why people get attached to their characters, because you can get really involved in building up your character, and then something happens and they're gone. And especially, I think, less experienced role players who maybe playing this for the first time and have discovered the joy of building it up. Then all of a sudden, something's went wrong, and then their character's off, and then they just, I've seen people throw fits just out of pure frustration. I think when you get a bit older and you've played them for a while, although some people don't mature, but you understand that, oh, that's a shame. But then you go straight away and you have your next character ready. Well, there's Chris on as well. But chat's busy today. Welcome, folks. Is this a good time to stream on a Saturday, sort of mid-afternoon? The folks on. So, right, here we go. We're starting to get different types of character. Enforcer. Every day is a fight for survival. No one knows that better than you. As long as you can remember, you have been a fighter for grub and bullets, for respect. Your knuckles and your soul are hardened. Crushing a jaw no longer hurts. You have learned the fighter's secret. It's not about who's the strongest, it's about who will never quit. Right, so here's your templates. Now get into the type of character you want to play. And that's where you focus your skills and strength. And once again, the conversation will always happen before a game. Okay, we need this, this, and this for this particular scenario. And then you kind of pick what you want to play. If you want to do something unique, then you have to justify it. Because you can't just have a random element in a game that adds nothing. I don't know, like this guy's in Charlie Chaplin in the middle of the Welsh countryside. During a time where like social media wasn't a thing and nobody understands what you're doing. Doesn't add anything. You know, you got to think about your character and what your character brings to the table. That's always at the foremost. So if you want to be a fighter character, you've got Enforcer, right? And then it gives what you basically have and what your specialties are. Gearhead. For other people, the zone is an empty wasteland, littered with useless scrap and garbage. For you, it's a gold mine that is never depleted. There are remains from the old age everywhere, broken technical wonders. You have mastered the art of turning them into new working contraptions. They're not pretty, but they work. Most of the time, sorry. Need to learn my punctuation. And the people have learned to value your craft. I'll just say the artwork in this. All right, so let's go back. It's that sort of subdued, post-apocalyptic, Mad Max type. There's the Gearhead. So, like I said, you have different specialities. It's always cool. Stalker, right. Let them stare at you in disgust. Let them shy away from you. Afraid the rot will infect them. Let them fear you like death itself. They hate you, but they need you. Only you know the way through the zone, the safe paths, crossing the grave lands in the old age. You know where the artifacts are hidden. You know where the monsters roam. You are a stalker. So that's sort of, I suppose, like a scout character. That's reminded me of, what was it, Book of Eli? Denzel Washington's character. The way he sort of dressed up. Kind of getting that sort of vibe. Fixer. All right. Bullets, grub, water, artifacts, a warm body next to yours, whatever people want, you can get it. Somehow seeing the needs of others is fulfilling them. That has been your strategy for survival as long as you can remember, since you're a weak little runt and learn to survive by staying close to the strong kids. So this is your rogue, your bit of woo, bit of wah type character. So what I'm getting from this, the Ark is your sort of little hub of civilization. Not everything out there is a vast wasteland. There's some pockets, so there must be other little arcs, mini arcs out there, or different groups. And sometimes you need it's not just about blundering in or going through. Sometimes you need somebody that's a wee bit of, all that kind of stuff. Do a bit of sweet talking. Once again, with these type of characters, you have to, it all depends on the scenario. So don't expect to be able to pick, like most games are 4 to 5 players, say. You're never going to get a game of 20 players. That'll just be absolutely mental. You're trying to run that. But anyway, on the next one. Dog handler. If there's something the Ark is not in, a short supply of wild mutts. Unlike you mutants, the dogs breed constantly and survive by feeding on refuse and, when needed, each other. You can't even remember how your sorry excuse for a dog became yours, but that's worth more to you than any mutant. You live in a symbiotic mutual dependency. You give your dog grub, and it'll tear the jugular off anyone who stands in your way. Cool. So that's your sort of Beastmaster type. So I'm guessing fight dog. So that you have a companion that goes with you. Is it one? Can you have a pack? Do you have an affinity with animals? If you I mean, if you encounter a creature, can you tame it? That sort of thing. With some other games. Oh, there's a cool one. So, relation to the other PC, is this like by your dog and therefore by you as well? That's the, you know, I mean, it's the old thing. If my dog doesn't like you, I don't like you. God, I remember at school, my first wee dog, Trixie, most placid wee thing, wee Jack Russell, most placid thing on the planet. In fact, sorry, I'm showing my age as well, but she was even that good that the paper man, she would always go up to the gate with the paper man. He would give her the paper and she would trot back in triumphant, you know what I mean? And everyone loved her. This wee kid from school came back with me one day at primary school and she changed like that. You know, she's like, you know, proper didn't like him. And I only started hanging out with him. And within a day, I was like, oh, Trixie doesn't like you, you know, in my brain. And sure enough, he was a wee scrope bag. And just amazing. Dogs are, you know, they're so intuitive. Absolutely big lumps. There's ones I walk to work with a big Great Dane. He's like, hop in the thing. I have to pat him every morning. It's fun, you know. I'd always be worried if a dog turned to me or didn't like me. I'd be like, oh, what have I done? You know, fantastic. But anyway, that's a little segue. I couldn't play a Beastmaster character because my other character, you know, my animal companion got killed. It upset me more than my own character. So that's why I never play those, because just me, I'd be like, oh. Anyway, Chronicler, next one. Everything must be recorded. All the people do must be taken note of. I think actually all the people do must be taken note of. Nothing forgotten. The Elder has been saying that as long as you can remember. The most gifted among you, he made chroniclers, tasked with writing down the fate of the people in yellow notebooks. You have filled many books by now. The Elder will soon be gone, but you won't betray your pledge to him. That's the... Is that your researcher? Is that someone that you basically, when you need to do research, investigation, you go to the chronicler? I've got the scene, you know, Kim Jong-un, North Korea, and he has all these flipping Egypts around him with notebooks, writing down everything he does. Like mad as hell. Right, boss. Human civilization may have collapsed, but the world hasn't ended equally for all. But the world hasn't ended equally for all. Some lead and others follow. Now, as in the old age, you lead. Through intrigue, manipulation, and naked violence, you have convinced a gang of mutants to follow you as their leader. That doesn't mean your life is simple. There's always another boss who wants to break you, or some underling who wants to take your place. All right, so that's when you're saying, basically, the group leader. Now, once again, with these are loose templates. So you just don't go, you know what I mean? You go, okay, I want to follow this template. Now, your boss could be because they're an enforcer, or they could be because they're a fixer, for example. That they mightn't be the strongest, but they convince people to follow them. And that's where the challenge, because in between the normal encounters, you could have like in play, like somebody might want to be leader of the group, and that's just like a submission you put in. It can either work or not. You know, the whole group could fall apart. It's a wee bit dicey. There's other systems that are variant that people stabbing each other back, and it's chaos. I'm not a massive fan of that aspect of the games because it does spill out, and I've seen it. I'm sure you've heard me talk about Vampire a lot. Like, that game is ridiculous, the way people get on that. Some people take it too far. But sometimes it's good. I think if you've got an experienced group that play together a lot, you can bring that element into it of, you know, okay, you're the group leader, but somebody's going to try and subvert you. You can kind of bring that in, but I think you need to know each other well and know not to take it personally and know that it's part of the game, and more importantly, know not to take it too far and still remember what the mission is, because that can ruin a game. So that's something you just have to be careful of, I think, when playing that. Right. Grunt. It feels good to work hard, to toil with your bare hands and to have purpose, not having to choose your own path, doing your master's bidding to make her proud, and still, somewhere deep inside you, you have a dream of a new place, new life where everything could be different. So that's so this type of character, that's good. I think that's good for a new player, right? And I'll tell you why. Just if you're new to role playing, and particularly like a system, like even if you played role playing games, every system's different. You can see similarities, but it's a new game. So sometimes, if you're not too sure about something, basically going in as a character where another player can almost be your mentor. And that's a good dynamic, I think. So if you go in as a grunt and then the leader's like, okay, do this, do that, and then the GM tells you, okay, now you have to roll. So maybe your first 1 or 2 games, you play as that sort of character, and then you get the mechanics of the game. Then you can progress and move on to a different one, if that makes sense. So that's a good type of character. Rebel resilient. You start the game with no bullets, D6 of rations and grub, and D6 rations of water. So that's cool. So you're rolling, right? You're rolling for your equipment. That's cool. Then, so it's all what you've managed to gather. So once again, that can either be really good or provide a challenge, and then it's up to you, obviously, in the group. If somebody rolls really high and somebody rolls low, do you share, or is it survival of the fittest? That kind of thing. 3 skills. Okay, so this is kind of what I've been alluding to. Role playing is a conversation. The GM sets the scene. You describe what you do. The GM tells you how NPCs react. NPCs, if you're not familiar, are non-player characters. So the GM basically runs those. They're people or things that you encounter during the scenario. Then you respond and so on, back and forth. The story grows one step at a time. But the world of Mutant Year Zero is a desperate place inhabited by desperate people. Sooner or later, things will come to a head, a point of no return, a conflict that cannot be settled by just talking it through. Conflict that cannot be settled by just talking it through. I can nearly read the day, can't I? Then it's time to bring out the dice and use one of your skills. So we've got basic skills: endure, strength; force, strength; fight, strength; sneak, agility; move, agility; shoot, agility; scout is wits; comprehend is wits; know the zone is wits; sense emotion, empathy; manipulate, empathy; and heal is empathy. So strength, agility, wits, empathy. So everything kind of gets grouped under these things. And that's what it is. It just depends how well your character does. So, like I said, you focus on a particular area of what your character is, and then the scenario comes up. So you can either use those skills or not. There might be advantage. You can still try and roll, but your chances of success are very slim if you don't have that particular skill. But the whole point is that you have somebody in your group that does have that skill, and they carry the burden for that particular encounter. The art of failure. If you roll no, what is that? It's a little nuclear symbol. Have a see what these dice are. Using normal dice. If you don't have access, right? So there's custom dice for this. I have a problem with the custom dice. It's cool for this if you're sitting around in real life with people having custom dice, but then you have to provide the custom dice unless everybody buys them. Then if you run the game, you have to bring enough for everybody, sort of thing, or else you're sharing one set of dice, which can be but troubling. But today, with the advent of VTTs and online gaming, where busy people can play virtually, like I do a lot, because God, there's nobody around this neighborhood that plays role-playing games. So that's just the way it is. Not everybody's lucky to have a group close at hand, and if you don't, it's a way to do it. But with custom dice, that creates a whole set of problems. And if you remember when I did my Shiver review, it's how do you build that into a flipping template without being over cumbersome in the character sheet. So I think a lot of these games now need to really consider, at the very least, creating the character sheet template for, should it be Foundry, Roll20, D&D, it doesn't, you know what I mean? D&D Beyond's only 5th edition, but I think they should start including like other editions if they want to, you know, they still want to have people play the game. They should provide those options. I think in this day and age, I'm going to talk the Action Fiction that kind of brought up them guys. They're saying it's too much hassle to create an entire module. Fair enough, but at the least, create a character sheet and translate your dice so that it's easy for people to use, because that'll put somebody off a game. The minute you have to have something specialized, and the minute it becomes a hassle to get the equipment together, nobody's going to play your game. You know, that's just my thing. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's a bit of work involved in setting these up, but it should be fun. And if something becomes too cumbersome, it's not fun anymore. So that's just my 2 pennies worth of my thoughts on it. Right, so there's specialized dice. You can use normal 6-sided dice instead, preferably 3 different colors. For base dice, count blah 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 blah. Right, okay. Yeah, I need to figure that out. So if you're not familiar with these dice, you're gonna have to. That's something the GM's gonna have to think about before running the game, is how to translate this into for the players, even in person. If you're not buying the dice, then you need your chart. You need to make sure that people understand, okay, roll a d6, you get this. So he's saying 3 different colors. So blue, green, yellow one, you know, that means this. You need to roll above a 4 or 5, you know. Blah, blah, blah. That's okay. Describe your action. So this is now getting into the meat and bones of the actual game. Gear bonus. So gear you bring with you. Like I said, if you have a particular piece of equipment, it can give you a bonus, and it's all about rolling the dice. So it's about succeeding. A breeze, simple, easy. So there's your modifications. There's your table. So that's getting into the meat and bones of So it's just a symbol on 5 and 6. So 5 means one thing, 6 means the other. No, fair enough. Like I said, it's just about translating that so the players understand. Okay, so you roll a 5, it means this. You roll a 6, it means that. Job done. I know why people are trying to make their game unique, and I've seen that quite a bit. That, all right, we use this system now; it's better than everything, you know, and makes it. But that's a double-edged sword. I think most people who play role-playing games have your basic set. You pull the dice out of it. Like I've got rule set. You know what I mean? I've got standard set, normal dice. People want to use it because I used to have a wee dice bag. I'll have to get another one. I used to have my own little personal dice bag, and I had my little ones, and they were my dice, and they're the ones I want to play with. Simultaneous action, opposed rolls. Yeah, so this is where you know what I mean, you're carrying out actions, you roll to succeed, but then you've got a player or a non-player character who's rolling against you because you're like combat or they're struggling of some sort. If they roll better than you, you lose. So this is like any game, you know, it's you roll to succeed, but somebody's going against you, so you don't have to just succeed, you have to beat them. So it's all built in. Also, I'm not going to read out the entire book, I'm just trying to flick through. There's your wits, empathy, heals empathy, right? Cool. Specialist skills. So this is what you can. It all starts from the scenario. All these games start from the scenario, and then what sort of characters are needed for the scenario. Then, when you want to go in deeper, now, if it's a one shot, it's basic. If you're in a longer campaign, that's where you can get a bit more in depth. And don't forget, it's not just a conversation at the start. You can always, after each session, as the game goes along, you can have that conversation again about, okay, my character's going this direction. I want to kind of take them this direction now. How do you do it? For example, in the Tatters of the King episode, my character's using the time to just try and get a little bit more skilled using a shotgun, a weapon, because he's not a combat-oriented character. So what I'm trying to do is use the time to get like one extra point at the end of it. Same as research, I'm trying to get an extra point on like knowing the local area. So that's something that wasn't at the start of the game, and I'm trying to develop because it feels like it's useful to go along. Now I'm going to get massive, massively skilled, no, but it might just be the difference between failure and success, just getting that extra point added to your attributes. And that's kind of all these games as you go along the game. Okay, I'm falling down in this part. I want to try and build that bit up so that it's a bit easier or less chance of failure. So this is where you kind of this is where you kind of go in. Yep. And then it's going through all the all of these characters I've described. So it's basically showing how each archetype can build. Well, thanks for jumping on, Phil. Appreciate it. Obviously, talk to you when you get back. But yeah, so each archetype here has a chance to skill up, and that's as I was going through it. So, yeah, that's cool. Talents. Yep. So your skills, your talents, that can all be built up as you go along, like I said. And this is providing the template. So it's not an open-ended conversation, if that makes sense. It's not like a struggle. You just get the book out. And you've seen this here in gameplay. There's nothing wrong with just getting the book out. Okay, let's check what actually happens. Because this is a sense of fairness. You're like, right, okay, so to do this is what has to happen. And you need to, if you achieve this or achieve that, then you can progress. Or you don't, but it doesn't mean it's like forever. You can always try again. It's continuous. I'm liking. Oh, I do like the artwork in this. It's understated. It's that sort of understated but detailed. Oh, yeah, because like that bit of red. Somebody breathing fire. I think when you get into this, insectoid, yeah. I think when you get into this and you have an absolutely bonkers character that can do things. Oh, right, there's so many insectoids. So you can actually be a bee. Human magnet. Oh, right. So I'm thinking think X-Men, yeah. Parasite, you're a human parasite capable of absorbing the life force of other living humanoids, being arm's length. Oh, right. Yeah, so here we go. All the different things. Conflict and trauma. When someone gets in your way, you sometimes have no choice but to force them to move. Some of the skills described in Chapter 3 let you affect other people by manipulation, threats, or physical force. When someone wants to break you and you want to break him just as bad, you have a conflict. Conflicts can take a heavy toll on your character and can even kill him. Before entering a conflict, always ask yourself, is it worth it? Yeah, that makes sense. What I've noticed, and I remember when I first started RPGs, I came from a tabletop wargaming background. So it took me a minute to get my head around that you're not just rushing in to roll dice. It's the bits in between, that make this different. Where tabletop wargaming, you line your army up, they line their army up, and you're basically going at it, and that's the whole point of the game. It's a wee bit of a transition to go into this. It's a bit slower, and it makes the actual conflicts and the encounters more worthwhile because you're building the story, and then when it actually happens, and then the impact on the group basically decides where the story goes from there. Actually, we were playing Dragonlance, the Warriors of Kryn game, so that just makes the actual setting of either winning or losing that game depends what support you have in the next part of the campaign. So things got there. Quite cool as well. I think there's a computer game of this. Did I say like it's available on Switch and Xbox and stuff? Is that related, or is that just something that stole the name? Help me out, chat, if you guys know. Social conflicts, bargaining position. Right, so this is really in depth. Grappling. Right. So it seems to be there's quite a bit of social interaction, like even within the arc itself before you go out, or if you meet other encampments. And then there's also a bit of interplay between the characters themselves, because not everybody's, you know, it's not a happy band. It's people are out, people are out for themselves first and foremost, but it's all about survival, and that's where you have to work with people. But there's going to be things arise, so that's so I think you can have player against player battles in this, which is normally quite rare for games because they try to avoid that. But I think with this one, because of the nature of it, you can have it. Obviously at the end depends, but oh right, so I think you have critical roles injuries. So rather than yes, the hit points aspect is it's useful if you just you go down to hit points, but the some games don't really bring that in. You can be down to 2 hit points and still up and walking, and then you go to 0 and that's it. Where this is given modifiers. Yeah, so if you break your fingers, -1 to shoot and fight. Makes sense. If you break your arm, then you're not as effective, and it has a modifier until it's healed again. And then that's got a real world, how many rounds, because normally this is built into rounds and scenarios. So a round lasts so long. A campaign will take you to a point. So you sort of define it. Okay, by this point you'll be healed again if you don't suffer any more injuries. But during that time, you have the modifier. This is quite cool actually, because then you can have it on. You mark this in your character sheet, obviously, full time. So you've got damage shin, -1, move and sneak, right? So I have 2 damage shins at the moment. So is that a -2? Actually, it's not that bad, just scrapes. I was lucky. That could have been bad yesterday. Yeah, so yeah, move and sneak. So when you need to do something, if you've got an injury, you gotta put in the modifiers. Booze, right. Yeah, so this is all conditions and damage, explosions, vehicles. Right. The Ark itself, chapter 7, right. The Ark is your home. This is where you've grown up together with the other mutants, protected from the horrors of the zone around you. The Elder has kept you safe during the long winter, but the safe haven is no more. The Elder is dying, the people have become young adults, and grub is getting scarce. Scarce, sorry, let's see. Mutant is turning on mutant, packs are formed and plots whispered in the dark, but you must find a way to work together. The people of the Ark need to overcome their differences to find a new path forward. Evolve, build new civilization on ruins of the old. If you can't, legacy of mankind will be lost forever. Right, so you create your Ark. So like I said, there's more than one Ark. This just happens to be the language of the world. The Ark settlement with a few hundred inhabitants is the starting point of the game. All PCs live in the Ark and have grown up there. Maybe you've never even left the Ark. The outside world is unknown and dangerous. Only stalkers and other fools head out there. To create your Ark is the first thing you should do when you've created your characters. It's a simple process. Just follow the steps below. Use the Ark sheet at the end of this book, or download it from the Modifius website. Before you create the Ark itself, you need to determine what zone it's in. Start by deciding where in the world the zone is located. It may well be somewhere in your home country, or it could be anywhere in the world. Preferably, the zone should at least partially contain the ruins of a city. Why not your own hometown? Decide as a group what the general environment of the zone looks like. Is it flat or hilly? What major rivers or coastlines are there? What landmarks? The next chapter, you find 2 pre-made zone examples, the Dead Apple and the Big Smoke. Right. You can choose to play in either of these zones or just use them. So basically, get a map of the world, get a town or a city, superimpose it, do lots of rubble, basically as long as you have navigation points. Next up is create a general map of the zone. This map is so this is sounding to me ideal for VTT. So this could almost be played with miniatures. I could be wrong, but I'm getting the impression that you could get miniatures, have it zoned out, and you're moving from part to part. This could almost be what did somebody say? There was similar to Alien. Yeah, so you're going through an old ship or one of the settlements. Cool. So yeah, you do a bit of world building at the start, make it unique, and then you've got NPCs. You create those people you'll go to for help. Ark, right? So there's an example. The Ark is a beached cruise ship, which would make sense actually because they're basically living hotel. You know, they're floating hotels. So you've got living quarters, you've got the galley, you've got entertainment. I mean, that makes sense. So you can have things like oil rigs, maybe an old prison. God, you name it. You know what I mean? So that's cool. You start off and then you create where's your arc? What's it look like? Then inside you have where the elder is. So is there somewhere where there's a gearhead that you go to get your gear repaired? Medical place, somewhere to buy gear. You know what I mean? That's basically that's your fallback location, and where you sort of get your self sorted out, and then you do your interaction, and then obviously the urgency of your mission depends what happens in the arc. So if things are starting to fall apart, you're then on a time scale to go and do whatever before the whole thing just descends into chaos. Like I said, factions form, so you could maybe have the arc is split up into zones. You know, if say gang warfare takes place, so there might be part of the arc you can't go into because you've become affiliated to this faction because it's broken apart, and maybe you have to try and find a way to bring people together again. Or it might not happen if you fail a mission and it doesn't. It just evolves into chaos. So, yeah, tons of stuff here. Tons of stuff you can do. Right, hunting party. The people organize expeditions into the zone to track and kill wild beasts for grub. Yeah, hunting. If the arc is on the brink of starvation, people can resort to the desperate managers. So that's cannibalism. Cropland. Plot of land set aside for organization, cultivation of grain crop. Boss the slave market. Start trading the slaves. Pigsty. Temple. Zone wrestling. All right, so you know, I mean, zone wrestling. So there, you might have to go and prove yourself by taking part in a wrestling competition, and to maybe warrant your position on an expedition hunt. Yeah, that'd be a good one actually. So the characters have to earn their way. So there could be different competitions. Think of the gearhead. It could be like there's tables at it random stuff. Whoever builds something the quickest time, you can have a mini competition, and then that's how your player character earns their place on the team. You know what I mean? There's tons of stuff you can do with this. Scrap Fortress there. So there again, there's another example. So it could be an old castle ruin or something that's been built up. Theater, right? Entertaining people. Yeah. Oh, there's like it's just going through everything here. There's tons of stuff that you have built into your arc. Explosive labs, you know. Okay, let's go on. Right. So basically what this is given, this chapter is chapter 7, just everything that'll be in the arc. So you can have a whole almost mini campaign in the arc itself without leaving before you go out in the expedition. And then chapter 8, zone travel. So that's when you basically leave the arc to go out to the zone. Cool. Zones of wastelands surround the arc, and its labyrinth of decaying ruins and dark forests. It's a vast mass grave for the crumbling monuments to the ancient hubris and arrogance. Out there, feral savages and mutated monsters roam. And if you're lucky enough to survive the beasts, the invisible lethal rot will sooner or later kill you. For as long as you can remember, the Elder has warned you not to stray into the zone. Yet that's exactly where you need to go now, deep into the unknown, to find knowledge, to find clues to the origin of people, and the path to your future. Yep, so that's me map. That's what it's. So, for example, I was using a map of London. So I can have that set in London travel, obviously, like big thing in London is obviously crossing the Thames. So your only option might be to go like the Blackwater Tunnel, but what's that infested with? If that makes sense. Loads of things you can do. Depends where you position yourself. Is it more industrialized? Is it more out into the sticks? All that kind of stuff. And obviously, it can be said anywhere. So that's where you just use. My advice from reading this is you just go into Google, get a map of a certain area, city, lay it out, and don't forget you don't have to do it all at once. You can start off, and then as the game progresses, you might go out further. Obviously, the point is you don't stray. If you don't have a vehicle, don't stray too far. But you can obviously build on bits, but have that template of what it looks like, and then you can just crumble it a bit to look like post-apocalyptic waste. So you don't have like draw maps from scratch, or it's not high fantasy. We're using real world locations, so that's cool. Gives you a basic template to work on. About other arcs, so I was right. Some nights when the smog lifts, you can see faint lights at the horizon. Have you seen them? Some say they're just a mirage or some zone phenomenon best left alone, but I don't think so. I'm sure there's something over there, something important. I once walked as far as I could in that direction before the grub ran out or the rot got me. I didn't make it all the way, but pretty far. Do you know what I saw? Other mutants just like us? Believe if you want. I'm sure there's another arc out there. We're not alone. That would make sense. Like I said at the start, there's more than one arc. And this is where, obviously I'm overthinking here, but if you've got different people playing this game, you could have them eventually meet up, cross campaigns. You can run simultaneous campaigns, from different arcs. And then eventually you could have the meeting, and then that's where everything can progress. I think it'll be really good in this game and really get into a long one. But yeah, I think the point is that humanity's become that sparse and widespread and mutated that these arcs are few and far between because everything's just desperate. And in this world, they actually come together to build something like that or inhabit something peacefully is a rarity. I think that's a vibe I'm getting from this game. You can correct me if you've played this and think I'm wrong, but the fact that these new humans can come together at all instead of just being little isolated pockets of one is a rare thing, or small bands. So to almost build many societies is an accomplishment, and it's precarious. I think that's the impression I'm getting as well. It's just one incident away from just completely devolving and falling apart, which then adds to the urgency. You need something. You need a purpose to play the game. You need to achieve your mission. So that sense of urgency that everything's just about to fall apart. If everything's like on a knife edge, cliff edge sort of thing. There you go. I've been waffling on for a bit here. Your job as game master. You're the game master. You're the arc. You're the zone. You're the rot itself. You're the friends and enemies of the PCs. You're the monster stalking from among the ruins. You're the artifacts waiting to be discovered. You're the truth about the people. You're the journey to discover the truth. It's a tough job, but also great fun. The chapter tells you how to do it, and the following chapters give you all the tools you need on top of your own imagination. Mutant Year Zero doesn't require much preparation on your part. There's no preset course of events that you need to memorize. Instead, you and the players create the story together, using the tools of the game and your own creative minds. In this chapter, you'll find the basic principles of the game, as well as typical events in the arc and in the zone. There's also guidelines to help you run your first session of Mutant Year Zero and advise you how to create and manage your NPCs. Cool. It is a daunting. Anyone that's GM runs games, fair play them. I've only done it a couple of times. I'm not very experienced. It's your first and foremost is, do you want people who are playing to have fun? I think that's any GM worth their salt. That's their first priority. Because if nobody's enjoying themselves playing your game, then what's the point? And there's people with different style. That's why I'm glad the online world's open, because if you're relying on physical location, you might have a group that you don't gel with, and that makes it very difficult. Everyone's got a different personality and style of how they run a game or play in a game, and it's getting the right people together that basically everyone has fun and makes allowances for personalities. That's not an easy thing to anyone who encounters people understands that. Not always the easiest thing, but yeah, not getting bogged down. The advice I'll give, like I said, I'm not a very experienced GM, but the one I always get is don't get bogged down in remembering stuff. That's why you've got notes. That's why you've got tools. I always think of, okay, where are the locations and who or what are you going to encounter in the locations? And then everything else I play loose on how to get there with a bit of steering, but I kind of have definite places that basically the players need to go because that advances the story. I don't get so bogged down because a random dice roll can, like I said, I'll use that Star Wars example. You know what I mean? One bazooka shot, if you let it, can end the whole game. If the only thing you've planned is that's where that MacGuffin is that people need to get, and if that thing blows up, then you can't get it. You have to be flexible. So my advice is always have your points. Everything else kind of goes loose, but it doesn't mean that you're fighting against the players that are fighting against you if they don't do exactly what you're expecting them to. What was the one I played? The Haunting. So I had this completely separate scenario where the Adam and Derek went into a church. That wasn't on the game at all. It was a completely different scenario, but it didn't lead them anywhere. But it still was an interesting thing to play out, and it was just a bit of fun. But eventually, that's basically what happens. You go there, nothing else comes of it. Another thing I would say is don't be that. Oh no, you fail, you die. You can't be that blunt. The whole point of this game is, well, as long as people are playing and having fun, it can take as long as it takes. And that's something I think anyone that gets into RPGs, it's not a you must go to point A to point B, game ends. That's why I said at the very beginning of this, you might have a short campaign, you might have anticipated played for 1 or 2 sessions, and it ends up going into 3 or 4. But if everyone's enjoying themselves while they're playing and they want to come back for more, why not? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's the best outcome, is that you have people invested in the game that you're running, that they want to come back for more. And yeah, it stands out. Maybe takes longer than originally planned, but so what? It's fun at the end of the day. This isn't a job. It's fun. It's a game. And as long as everybody on board understands that, good times happen all. If you've got it, you're a target. If the PCs against all odds come across a large amount of grub and bullets, or they find a powerful artifact, doesn't mean their troubles are over. They will draw the envy of other mutants in the Ark. You may try and cheat them, or just plain kill them to take the stuff. Make the PCs fight for what they have. Yeah, mutations are there to be used. The mutations are a central part of the game. Give the PCs plenty of opportunities to use them. Since the mutations are random and not chosen by the players, they may find it difficult to find uses for them. Help them by creating challenges tailored to the PC. So this is what I'm saying. Everyone has a particular skill, and it's up to the person running the game to provide the scenarios to give them a chance. And it don't just focus on 1 or 2 players. It's easy to do it like if everything's combat based and only your combat players are getting to do stuff, and everyone else starts feeling left out, that they're just along for the ride. It's no good. So that's why I said right at the start, the scenario dictates what players you're looking for. So you know your scenario, and it's like, okay, so I need a fixer, I need a gearhead, and I need an enforcer. And then anything else above that can be loose, but you need those 3. And then people said, okay, I want to have a go at this. They build a character. Okay, I want to be the gearhead. Okay, for this. If you end up with somebody else who wants to be like the hound master, the person has hounds, then it's up to you as a person running the game. It's your responsibility and to make sure there's a scenario so that person gets a shot. And when everyone feels like their character's useful and they're getting to utilize them and enjoy, the skills that they have and get to see how they play out, then everyone's fulfilled. And it doesn't have to be every scene, if that makes sense. People are happy to stand back and let another character take the lead till the next part. And then when it comes their chance, they get a bit. So it's play by ear. You get to know your group, and that's it's easier if you're playing with the same people for a while. You get to know what folks are like. But it doesn't mean you can't bring in new players. And if somebody's maybe a bit hesitant, then you don't throw them into everything straight away. Sometimes being a new player, let them be part of the game almost as a background character, and then give them a chance to roll so that they learn the mechanics, and maybe they're watching other players and how they deal with stuff. And that's them, and then when you go to throw them in, they're ready for it. So, like I said, it's all about having conversation at the end of the day. The end is never set. Yeah, because this is an ongoing world, so you might achieve particular mission. Doesn't mean everything ends. It's not a they all live happily ever after. It's the world continues on. You might have achieved that bit, but it doesn't mean it's the end. And like I'm saying, it's all ongoing. So that's why these campaigns can run for. There's people play campaigns that run for years. It's just they come back every month or something, and they keep playing campaign, go play other games. We'll come back to this particular one, pick it up again, carry on. Death's part of life, feel the apocalypse, hope never dies. Can be funny too. Yep. Some of the dice rolls can bring the best comedy in these games. You fluff up a dice roll, and just absolutely disastrous, or you succeed something really well and something so minor, just it happens. Fight over projects. Yeah, so so got that. Your team, you have to earn your place in the team, but then your team has to earn the right to do the mission, because obviously with achieving the missions comes prestige, extra grub, extra rations, extra material. When you go to get stuff repaired, you then have the elder's stamp of approval if you have succeeded so many missions. So other people will vie to take part in the mission, and there could be an NPC team, and you've got to beat them to just even leave the zone to go out in the mission in the first place. So I can kind of see where this game's going. The threat escalates. Oh, each of the 25 threat cards describes an internal or external threat to the Ark. These threats usually cannot be ignored by anyone in the Ark nor by the PCs in Chapter 10. These threats are described in more detail. Right, so that's the next one. Yeah, so like I said, it's all precarious. It's all about to fall apart. PC versus PC, so yeah, player characters can be everything's tested. So that's big dream. Right, so every PC has a personal goal. Yep. So talk about that. Events in the zone. Yeah, so an external threat can come to wipe out the Ark, or the Ark can fall apart. So it's a dynamic environment, is what I'm trying to say, and that's what pushes the game along. Right, I'll not get into too much of this. Dealing with resources, opposition. Yep. Threats against the Ark is Chapter 10. So, derelict oil rig. Flip sake, you think I've played these games before? The way I've sort of called things. We'll fit the zone. Giant rusting metal hull. Oh, right. So, yeah, something comes up against. So it could be, if it's a beached, for example, let's use the beached cruise ship. Even though it's basically be on the water's edge, something could float up beside it. Don't know what it is. Are there more mutants inside? Is there a threat? Is there a chance of resources? Helldivers, murder in the Ark. A generally well-liked person in the Ark or someone close to a PC is found brutally murdered one morning. Hacked to pieces. Right. It's never happened before. So, yeah, say you've got a mention religion. So say the Ark's a religious one, and somebody gets murdered, which is totally unheard of. Then you've got to investigate what's happened. So you can have missions inside the Ark as well as outside. Revolution, so people want to basically take over, and that's where your factions. Sinkhole, right? So the Ark's starting to fall apart. Other people, project sabotage, right? Starfall, yeah, tons of stuff. Zone fever. So this is all things that can happen. Cool. In the Ark. So there's plenty. You can play a game just in the Ark without leaving it first. Tons of stuff. Creating the zone, special zone sectors. So that's where I said you just get your real world map. Best way I can see to do this: get a real world map. Okay, you're here. blah 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 blah, and just use it. And then you can use the mileage between like towns, cities, just call it something else, and then you've got something to refer to. Simple as explored, unexplored. So you can have unexplored, but if you're using a real world map, then you just expand it out. Job done. So if you counter a city or a river, then you use that in the game, and then you're not having to like reinvent everything. So to me, that's the best way. Ruins, yep. Threats in the zone. So as you go, romp level. That's something I'll need to read up more. So is that radiation poisoning or something, or biological? So if you're out, you're susceptible to the rot. So that's obviously something you have to roll for. Like I said, I'm only skimming through this. Ruins in the zone, chapter 12. Normal ruins, airplane wreck, amusement park, battlefield, bus station, car park, church, blah blah blah. Right, so that's what I'm saying. Your real world map is perfect for this. You just use the buildings. Job done. So you're not having to always think of stuff. Pick out one piece, highlight it, everything else can crumble around it. Yeah, it's just going through everything, industrial ruins, everything, right? Threats in the zone. The zone might be empty and lifeless, but hidden dangers among them. Threats and events. Blah blah. So you can beast mutants, Amnesiac, Warlocks. Right. So yeah, Doom cultists, Scrap Oracle. Yeah. So like I said, you have cults and all sorts here. Think Planet of the Apes. Remember the Cult of the Bomb? You can have that kind of stuff. In fact, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting Planet of the Apes vibes of this. It's cool. So you think of that area, you know, the Ark was basically the ape settlements, and then they had the Waste Zone, but in the Waste Zone there was mutants. Big Judge Dredd with the megacities. So, right. So they've got so tons of creatures here. Parasite, fungus, razorback, and they've all given them, stats. So you're not just making stuff up. Rot fish. So if you're crossing rivers, there's rot fish, attack you. So I think what you do here as a GM is like I said, you plot out the areas and you just think what are the characters going to encounter, the main thing, and then there's nothing wrong with flicking. You can have these. You pick out your 10 creatures or events, what's going to happen, and when you expect them to roll for the events table, and then that kind of shifts things. Artifacts. So that's something I need to sort of think about the artifacts. Artifacts are the most valuable things a PC can find. These rare functional items from the old age can give them power over other mutants, bring knowledge to the people, and even show the way to Eden. The text on all the artifact cards in the Mutant Year Zero card deck is repeated here, and some of the more intricate artifacts are described in more detail. You, as GM, decide when the where PC may find an artifact. When the PC explores new sector in the zone soccer, so yeah, you kind of know, right? This is where the artifact's going to be. So let's give an example: battery, bicycle, binoculars, bow and arrow, canoe, cassette player, metaplot. What that means? Oh, there might be something in the cassette player, right? Crossbow, diving gear, address, hockey helmet, hunting, right? Smoke grenade, anything, yeah. Stimulants. D6. Right. Don't let the PC find too many artifacts too soon. Artifacts should be rare and valuable. As a general rule, don't let the PCs find more than one or two artifacts per session in total. You can let some NPCs have artifacts, but that should also be a rare occurrence. NPC artifacts have a tendency to end up in the hands of the PCs. And the PCs still would come across a large amount of artifacts. Remember, the others will try and get their hands on them. So you hit them while they're loading, basically, you're going to have everybody going, swarm on you. So you might know where it is, but you kind of go mark the location, but then people will come after you to try and find the location. Cool. Right. Soda can. Very correct. Brown trinkets, I believe. Right. Yeah. Special zone sectors. Rich sources. So clean water is a big thing. Worth more in the way to go to people in our groups. So that could be a thing. You're right to find fresh water. Right. I think we're coming near the end of this here. The pure plant. Right. So that's the scenario in the arc. This basically dictates what you have to go out and find. While you're out there, you're going to encounter what you encounter, and you might find something else along the way, or you might not. That's rarity. Once again, you don't trivialize everything because then it gets boring. There's no challenge. Cool. There's the cults. There's hell drivers. So there's other named cults and groups that you can use. Rust Castle. So that's I think that's a ship again. Nearly there. Special. Oh right. So here's a bunch of maps. Yep. So at the end of the book here, we've got a bunch of maps and stuff. Like I'm saying, I would just use a real world map wherever you're deciding you're playing, and then any major features, the things that are less likely to crumble, like sports stadiums, prisons, military bases. Actually look where they are, and then that's the exact sort of distance you have to go to get to them. So you're not having everything because the temptation is to have everything within like one set of squares, isn't it? So the encounter, but you have to make something challenging. They may never reach it. Plus, you don't have everything charted. So that's where your chronicler comes in. They can go back and, okay, where's been charted so far? And that could be part of just the game, is actually going charting new grounds, an unexplored zone, and then get the information back to the Ark. There's a scenario. Path to Eden. I have a funny feeling you're never going to find Eden in this game. I think that's the myth, the idea, the dream. But I don't think it's something attainable, because if you find, your first scenario, you find Eden, well, game over. Project Eden, Professor Atwood, Jeremiah Atwood, the final years, the old age for the final fall, scientists of the world, search for answers. So I'm guessing Eden will be like a biodome, or the Genesis Project, which is down in Cornwall or something, something like that. But how safe would it be? And could you get near it? If there is actually an Eden, it would be well defended. And if it's from the old world, there'd be automation stuff, gun towers, phalanx guns, you name it. You're not getting anywhere close, and it'll probably be hidden too. So I think Eden is the idea, but I don't personally believe in this game that you should find it. Or if you're going to find it, it'll be an old attempt. If that makes sense. So it would be an Eden was built, but then it was overrun or destroyed, or like a biodome, but it got smashed in and was overrun by mutants. I don't think you should find Eden in this. I think it'll just end the game. It's kind of it, but there should be clues and hints. Yep, and that's basically what it's doing. Hitters. Yeah, so they're almost taking a leaf out of Resident Evil's book. So this busy Umbrella Corporation's headquarters or something, that type of stuff. Command Center Delta. Yep, so we've got these underground places. Yeah, it's going to be somewhere you're getting nowhere near. But what you're getting then is every so often it's a hint from the old world, actual, and that could be enough. You just get a bit of lore, saying like an ID card or a cassette tape or letters or a photograph. and leading up to the war. Nobody knows exactly what's happened. Then the last bit's just scrap table. So there's loads of tables here to roll on, find stuff from. There you go. There it is. Even if you've no intention of playing this game, this is a lovely book, and it's actually a good. It's actually a good read. Like I said, I've only flicked through it. There's an hour and a half nearly. Bloody hell! I can spend ages in these books, and the world building that goes into it, and the idea is fantastic. So if you haven't, check it out if they're available. I don't think it's in print at the moment. Like I said, I had a look there. It might come back in, but there you go. I might look up, see what these card decks are all about, because yep. Only when they could pull up Fitzgeorge. Yeah, in the Welsh countryside in 1920s, where nobody has TV and video. But yeah, might see if we can try and tie up, see if we can get a game run. I'd be interested to play this. Looks like a lot of fun, and there's a lot of intrigue and stuff that can go on. There's no shortage of material. Yeah, there's no set scenario in this, by the way. So no way normally games will give you an example scenario. There isn't, but there's more than enough in this, from what I've read, to run a game. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It can get more complicated as you get more experience with it, but I mentioned, right, the ark's running out of water. Need to go find a water source. Job done. There's a scenario. And then you just build everything else in. Use a real world map. Okay, where was an actual water treatment plant on the map? Any city, city has multiple of them, so pick a real world city, put where your arc is, look on the actual map. Okay, there's a water treatment plant. There's one. And then just how's your character's going to get there. There we go. Right, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for the chat. It was a great day. Lots of you on talking away. Are you enjoying this when I sort of open these role-playing games? I need to get more. I know I need to get more on the channel. I'm sorry. It just takes a wee minute to get. I need to run a game or something soon. I'll try and do that. I'll hopefully get a few players together and we'll make it happen. Even if someone else runs a game and I do all the book offers in the background, I'm happy with that too. But we'll see where we'll go. But yep, later on I'm talking to Anthony Caro. He's coming on. We're talking about his latest book. And then later on, I'm on Dragonlance Saga's channel to play 2nd edition D&D when the Black Roses bloom. And tomorrow I'll probably be sleeping, but I'm sure I'll jump on and do something at some stage. Lots happening. Channel's busy as always, so keep up to date. Do the typey clicky things. And until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.